What's going on, guys? It's Joe Farewell with Tactical Hyve, and I'm excited to bring you in today to talk about the top 3 mistakes I see people when they're working shotguns. So the first mistake that I see all the time is having a good cheek weld and maintaining it while you're shooting multiple shots. What happens is, as we're up on the shotgun, as soon as we start taking those shots, a lot of times we'll start lifting our head up, and what that does is you're going to expose the vent rib, this right here. If you start to see the vent rib, your pattern is going to start going right over top of the target, even though you have your front bead or your front sight on the target. So what that's going to look like when I shoot the plate rack is, as I come up in here and I take those first couple of shots, I'm going to maintain a good cheek weld, but my head's going to start to lift up, and you're going to see that pattern goes directly over top of the target. 1, 2, and as you can see, every time I shoot, my head lifts up a little bit higher, and that pattern goes directly over the target, even though I'm still maintaining a good sight picture with my front sight bead. So in order to improve this, one thing that you can do is you can actually put a little piece of paper in between your cheek and the stock. If that piece of paper falls out when you're shooting, you know that you're lifting your cheek off the stock. We want to make sure we have a good contact with that. What that looks like with a good contact is we keep our cheek well down on here, and then we keep it there as we continue to shoot. That way, all the way across the board, we're not losing our cheek weld, we're maintaining a good sight picture through the rear sight if you have one. We're not seeing the vent rib, and the shot pattern is actually hitting the target exactly where you want it to go. All right, so the second mistake that I see all the time is where people put the shotgun on their shoulder in order to manage the recoil. One thing that I see a lot is people putting the shotgun too far out on the shoulder, and what happens there is you're actually going to see the shotgun following the path of the curve of your shoulder here. That's also going to cause bruising and tissue damage if you're shooting a lot, because where that shotgun is actually kind of a pressure point there. What we want to do is we kind of roll that shoulder forward, and as you roll your shoulder forward, you're going to feel a pocket up here in your shoulder. What that looks like here is if I'm in a good spot, that shoulder's got the pocket in, the stock of the shotgun is kind of at the top edge of my shoulder, and it gives me a good cheek weld while maintaining good recoil control. If I get too far out on it, it's going to start hurting me on my bicep and on my shoulder blade, and it's also going to cause that recoil to start going up and to the right, big time up and to the right. All right, this is what it looks like here. With a bad shoulder position out here on the side, you're going to see the shotgun go up and to the right. Okay. Plus, it just hurts. It's not pleasant to do. I'm also not going to be able to get a good cheek weld there at all. With a good shoulder position where I've got this in the pocket, I'm rolling the shoulder forward, I'm able to maintain the recoil, and you're going to see the sights come basically straight back. That is a whole lot more comfortable as well. The other important thing to note there is that we're maintaining contact with the shoulder. We don't want to have that shotgun riding off of it, because what that's going to do is it's going to force that shotgun to come back. It's going to give it room to accelerate, and when it hits you, it's going to feel like a punch. Now, I do have a little bonus for you after this one, but the third most common mistake I see is your stance. When you're shooting a shotgun, you have to make sure we're keeping a good forward center of gravity. What that looks like for me is I'm going to build a good aggressive stance where I'm leaning forward into here. My center of gravity is forward of my hips. That's going to allow me to be very aggressive, and it's going to help me shoot a lot faster while maintaining the recoil effectively. What you don't want to do is get to where you're squared up on this, your toes start to lift up, or you start to lean back, because you're not going to be able to shoot fast, and it's going to force you back on your back. This also carries over into where we have it in our shoulder position and our cheek weld. All of these things are kind of an overall look at how we work a shotgun. So a bad stance is going to look something like this, where I'm kind of standing squared up to the shotgun. I've got myself basically perfectly erect, or even locked back or leaning back a little bit. That's a problem. What that's going to look like is, especially if you watch my toes, you're going to see me rock backwards as I'm taking these shots, and I'm having to use my upper body to force myself back forward. Even if I get aggressive in this position by leaning forward, taking multiple shots is still going to push me back. So if we throw one leg farther back out behind us, even if it's this leg, we can kind of build a triangle stance of sorts. Basically, I'm creating a point of contact here, and then my center of gravity is leaning forward. That's going to help you maintain that recoil across the board, and it's going to let you shoot a whole lot faster. And it's not going to push me around at all. All right, so I told you I was going to have a little bonus for you, and this is specifically for you guys that are into 3-gun, wanting to get into 3-gun, and wanting to load your shotgun effectively using quad loads. Now, when we load quad loads, one of the most important things is making sure that we index properly with our thumb. One of the common mistakes I see is people just grabbing the quad load out of their belt. What this turns into is a mess, basically. When I try to jam this in here, I now have to get my fingers out of the way and try to shuffle the shells into the gun. That's not ideal. What we want to do instead is we want to make sure that we're indexing our thumb properly and setting the shells up in our hand for success. So when I'm looking at this, when I look down at my shells, these two right here are the first two that are going to go into the gun. I want to make sure that my thumb is indexing on the top of those two shells. I hit those two shells, my hand wraps around, and then I'm able to pull those shells off into my hand. What that looks like on this side is these two, again, are the first two in the gun. They are being held in by the tip of my thumb here and by just my middle finger and my ring finger, just the tips of them. Okay, when I come down into my loading port, I want to have this opened up, and when I put those two in, I want to open my fingers away from it so that the other two shells don't interfere with the loading of the first two. As those go in, I'm going to ride the tip of my support hand thumb along the edge of the receiver. I'm going to use the momentum that's generated by that movement to carry the shells past the shell catch. It's a quick movement, but it's very effective, just like so. As I do that first one, I'm going to come back in, I'm going to reestablish the grip on my second part of the quad load, come back, line it up, and I'm going to open these fingers so the fingertips aren't getting in the way. Still maintaining just half of my thumb over half of the shell, and then push those in the same way. That way we're getting good momentum, making sure the shells go all the way into the gun, and it's going to help you achieve that consistency in your quad loads across the board. One thing that's really important in order to achieve that is making sure that we have a good loading port cut. A good loading port is going to allow you to see the top edge of that shell, but it's also going to make sure that the shell's not popping back out. So the reason I want to see the top edge of the shell is so that I can maintain contact with my thumb as it goes in the magazine tube and even after it goes past the shell catch. That, combined with good momentum, is going to carry it in there. It's going to make sure the shells don't pop back out on you while you're doing your quad load and cause any problems during the stage. So I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you go ahead and smash that subscribe button, drop a comment down below, and I'll see y'all on the range.